Welcome all again to the 120th edition of this weekly series Whereby Newsroom by your host, the only host you have in this regards, where this week we once again are talking on a selection of media topics, including a selection of new releases, a couple of trailers to choose from, and a bit of some news to round it all up for the content and focus. Let's get to talking now a discussion about all things media that we have for this week in particular.
Extra!
Our first new release that we have for this week is seeing the case that we are all heading toward a colder and darker months, that the season will be upon us real soon. And in this case, it seems like the most logical timing for the unspeakable nature of the horrors of the supernatural to occur. And in the case with this first one, it looks like also to be that the cases in focus could be more than fiction, as we return to the world of Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases of supernatural material, for the one that made them quit their careers in the field, as we release of the final film in the Conjuring series with The Conjuring Last Rites. With every entry in the series is based on a true case that they have investigated, with this taking place back in 1986 and following their infamous Smurl case, which saw a family being tormented and other forms of threats and dangers from a demon that was a presence in their home for more than a decade. Now, reception on this final male entry in the series has been mixed to modest at best, with praise to the main leads of Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson's Ed and Lorraine, and for being a bit more of a better horror focus compared to the previous mainline entry, though the film is lacking in feeling the greater in terms of overall final main story entry, but it may find an audience overall. If you want to see this final case for yourself, then you can catch this new film out now in cinemas. And our only second film for this week in particular is the focus of a small town mystery, a deep conspiracy and a lot of chaos beginning to unfold, but it will take a new detective with skill, class, and raw sex appeal to solve this mystery, and look damn good while doing so, as Ethan Coen is back again to bring the second part of what he labels as his lesbian B-movie trilogy with the release of Honey Don't. Now, the film will follow Honey O'Donoghue, played by Margaret Qualley, a private investigator for a small town who gets herself delving into a mystery and starts a series of strange deaths that will all seem to be tied to a suspicious religious cult that is led by the sex-crazed but persuasive leader of Drew, played by Chris Evans. Now, reception on this second entry is also a bit mixed, but more on the lower appealing side, that while the cast and performances, particularly Qualley's performance being the strongest, the film is trying to show too much and gets buried in flashy violence, a bit of an overcomplicated story. Though if you want to check it out for yourself, you can catch this new film also out now in cinemas. Now, moving over to TV for this week, bringing us back to the world of the documentary type series, where many years ago, a crew following the working lives of a paper company in Scranton, Pennsylvania, that became a worldwide phenomenon. And in this case, we'll be focusing on the use of that product in other means, as we're heading a few states over to the focus of a new take on the series, as it's release of the new series based on the world of The Office with the paper. Now, the series will focus on the same crew that made Dunder Mifflin a famous name in the world, and take us to the next task all the way over in Toledo, Ohio, where the crew will focus their efforts on a company known as the Toledo Truth Teller, a historic but declining Midwestern newspaper that has seen itself trying to make a name and resurrecting themselves in the hiring of volunteer reporters and try to prove they still have a chance in a changing world and how news is delivered. Now, reception of this new series so far has been well received, with praise the approach and charm that was seen present in the original US series of The Office, as well, and well-liked performances. And given that the series already renewed for a second season a few days before release, it looks like it could be another success in this aspect. And if you want to read all about it, then you can watch the full season now on Peacock in the US and on Sky now in the UK and Ireland. Now on to games, and we start off with the big one. A game that has been highly anticipated for the longest time. One that for a while people doubted as being real, but after many long years and one valiant soldier posting about every news every day for about 1,000 days, we have finally gotten the release of the all-new DLC turned full-time release to Hollow Knight with Hollow Knight Silksong. In this standalone title, you will take on the role of a character known as Hornet, the former princess of Hollow Knight's fallen kingdom of Hallownest, as she is forced to explore the new land of Farloom after being captured and taken there, and a land described as being haunted by Silk and Song, where she will have to take on a deadly pilgrimage to ascend to the land's peak and discover the ancient secrets tied to her nature and past along the way. Now, reception of this title has not seen the full reviews as of yet, but from the audience reactions has been critically acclaimed, with praise of the visuals, its gameplay, story, and being a worthy follow-up to the original game, and is seen as being a proper Game of the Year title. The likes of every digital store from the game crashed on the launch is any indication it will be a strong outcome in that regards. And for a new battle, you can play it now on PS4 and 5, Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch 1 and 2, and Mac and PC, with a physical version of this game coming out sometime next year. Now, our next two entries are a bit of a darker tone and form, and the first next game will see a fair bit of darkness descend across the land, and a dangerous curse to the past may affect the present, but to resolve the future, it may come down to you to find a solution, as we have the release of the new horror in focus with the new game of Cronos, The New Dawn. In this game, you play as the Traveler, who works as an agent for an enigmatic organization known as the Collective, to serve in a mission known as the Vocation, where he must survive the dangers of a future apocalyptic wasteland to find points to travel back in time to Poland in the 1980s, in order to extract selected people who do not survive the cataclysmic event that turned humans humans into monsters known as orphans. Now, reception of this title seems to be decently received with praise to the setting concept and some of the mechanics being a bit of a highlight, as well as some of the horrors. The game does seem to suffer some of the issues of some clunky combat, the story not hitting a very strong high note but still being solid, and a few technical issues and feels a little close to Dead Space and Resident Evil without breaking too much ground and tone. But I'm sure the horrors will appeal, and if you want to check it out for yourself, then you can play it now on PS5, Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch 2, and PC. The third and last main full game release for this week is seeing the case that we have been told many times before that war never changes, but in this case the ideals of said war have begun to manifest itself into making something much more terrifying and make misdeeds or things from your past become more present and haunt you over and over. But in the case, it may be able to find a way to restore the lands and find answers along the way, as we have the release of a new horror-based action adventure, possible Souls-like title, with a new game of Hell Is Us. In this title, you take on the role of Remy, an ON or Organized Nations peacekeeper who goes absent without leave and ventures into his old home of the war-torn country of Hadia in order to find his parents that he was taken from as a child. I discovered that the region has been infested with supernatural beings with time manipulation following an event known as the Calamity. Now, reception of this title has also seen some mostly modest, well-received reception with praise for its non-linear approach, the story, puzzles, and environment, even if the lines of the combat can feel like nothing new and may be a little frustrating to navigate with no HUD or maps, but it may find appeal over time, and if you want to play it for yourself, then you can play it now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. And our last release for this week is not much of a full game, but rather an all-new expansion, as we return to the past and equipped with our iconic hat, jacket, and trusty bullwhip. We're returning to the title of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle with the first story DLC of the Order of Giants. Now, the story takes place during the middle of the original game's title, and we'll see Indy help a man named Father Ritchie uncover a lost Roman artifact deep under the streets of the city, but will soon lead to encountering dangerous traps, puzzles, and a dangerous cult of Matthias who must find a way to uncover lost treasure and uncover the secrets hidden below the surface. Now, reception of this new expansion seems a little mixed to positive, that while the story, campaign, twists and turns, and final fight are well liked, most issues and complaints seem to stem the expansion being a bit overpriced at €20 for a short DLC chapter that could have been more affordable. Besides that, most other stuff of the expansion has been well received. If you want to play it, you can get this DLC from the original Great Circle game now on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and we'll see release on the Nintendo Switch 2 sometime next year. And with all that regards now, that's all the new releases that we do have for this week.
Rattle 'em, boys!
Now, our first trailer for the week is a return to the world of superheroes in this case, but in this particular instance, it's not the way that you would expect it to be. And continuing on from a story that was first established in another series in mind from a couple of years ago, we have to wonder who will save us from our own heroes when they become a part of the undead, as we receive the trailer for the upcoming R-rated animated miniseries with Marvel Zombies. Now, based on the Zombies episode of the first season of What If, as well as the comic line, this miniseries will see a plague turn most of the world's population, including the Avengers, into zombies. This will follow a group of survivors as they discover the key to bring the end of the zombie plague, which leads them to risk their lives traveling across the dystopian landscape and fighting superpowered zombies to save the world. So it was a long time ago, but I do remember the episode, and it was a bit of time in comparison to this new take on the series, and I wonder if there's elements that will be retconned or applied later. But from the brief teaser focus of this trailer, this looks really cool, and also giving us another character that is well due an introduction to the MCU, first mentioned 6 or 7 years ago. But I'm all for checking this out, and hopefully we'll also get an extension from the overall narrative of like the appeal for this over time. And it's not too far away from release as well, as it'll be Rising from the Dead onto Disney Plus in about 3 weeks time on September 24th. Now, the second trailer for this week is the continuing story that also relates to the concept of a virus that has taken over the certain populace of a land, and it's a case that the years have gone on and things have evolved, that while the world around the quarantine zone lives on, this world has evolved and the story established just recently will continue, as we have the second part of the planned new trilogy in focus, as we have the trailer for the film of 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Then the film will continue the story first brought up in 20 years later, where we will see Spike being inducted into Sir Jimmy Crystal's group of acrobatic killers in a post-apocalyptic England ravaged by the Rage virus. Meanwhile, Dr. Ian Kelson uncovers a deadly discovery that will have consequences that could alter the world for the least expect. Now, in the case of the original entry of this trilogy, the concept of the film was well established, though a little over time I feel that some elements feel a little mixed in some aspects since then, which include a little of the ending, which seems to be a major aspect of this follow, which I'm a little concerned about. Though there's a case of hoping that there's more of a focus structure in this, that the first part looking at now can see this somewhat two different film structures, but from the aspect, I will give this a chance. In all case, this could turn out really good again, and may appeal to me back on the first one, but I guess we'll see by the return to this temple when it hits in the cinemas from the 16th of January of next year. Now, to take a break from the horror aspect of the moment and looking more in the area of a bit of steamy elements, we are taking a new approach to the well-known and beloved piece of literature and giving an all-new take for the big screen. Though it seems from this one, it's not in the approach that you may be familiar with, and from a director with a unique and outlandish style approach, as Saltburn director Emerald Fennell is looking to bring a lot more heat of the moment passion with the release of the first trailer for her take on the classic novel of Wuthering Heights. And the film will be based on the novel and will tell a gothic erotic psychological drama where tragedy will strike when Heathcliff, played by Jacob Elordi, falls in love with Catherine Earnshaw, played by Margot Robbie, a woman from a wealthy family in 18th century England, and soon a steamy romance of passion will begin to take shape. So what I know from the likes of the novel was seen as being very controversial when it was first written over almost 200 years ago, and over the years it has seen the case of many adaptations, and from the looks of this one is going for more of a new take on a very steamy based romance love story. But while some elements of the unquieted love is present in the original novel, this seems to be hitting more in an all-out smutty affair. Now I've heard the case as well that this film had early test screenings and had a sense of a bit of a mix with some questioning approach taken by the director and a bit overdoing on the romantic elements or kind of things, but I don't know. I think now relate to the novel question about case, as well as some possible controversy about casting of the main lead being some possible race thing or something. I don't know. I might get into that, but I'm sure there'll be some area of the option that will do well against some, but I guess we'll see what the film's released in cinemas on Valentine's Day of next year. Now, on the only video game related trailer we have for this week, then the focus that while the film side of this franchise is finding itself in constant discussion as to who is who and who will be helming the project, on the game side, we have a focus on a new take on this iconic spy that has been in development for a little while now, where instead of going forward, we're going back to where it all began for his career. As the studio behind the Hitman games have brought with them a trailer for the all-new take on the Bond series with a new trailer for 007 First Light. In the game, we'll have you take on the role of a much younger James Bond, albeit not in connection to James Bond Jr., who is betrayed as a 26-year-old and an inexperienced MI6 agent, who's tasked on a mission that, if completed and not taken out in the process, will be able to obtain his iconic 007 moniker and a true license to kill. So I remember when this title was first announced, and when I saw it was like the studio behind the recent Hitman trilogy, my initial approach was that this will be something of a similar styling game, but from the looks of things, it's going to be a mix of that series, but a fair bit of Uncharted sprinkled in for good measure. And from the recent gameplay shown, it actually looks like it could be a really well good 007 game, and a game we haven't had in the franchise for well over a decade now at this point. Also, the Bond is voiced by an Irishman, so big approval on my end. But I'm sure it will be well worth trying out when the game will be debriefed and released on the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch 2, and PC for March 26th next year. Now, the second animated show of this week is in the case of wondering if you're feeling down or wearing a bit of a frown and need some cheering up and you don't know how, then there is a pair of odd-looking characters in mind that will go out of their way to make sure you turn that frown upside down. As after a bit of a shorter wait for the last season, it's time for new adventures in this strange and colorful world as we receive the trailer for the third season of the popular Adult Swim series of Smiling Friends. Then the series will continue on the misadventures of the gang of the Smiling Friends headquarters, including the likes of Charlie and Pim going on some journeys to make people smile, and the case of even Alan Glepp and Mr. Boss getting in on the fun and get the likes of all the spirit gems. Mr. Frog may run towards the camera and it may all end with a fight against a witch, but you never know how the series goes. Now, it's always the case with this series in particular that ever since it first released the pilot around 5 years ago, I believe now, the series has seen a lot of appeal and just felt fresh and works in a sense of humor, and the way they just talk feels a bit more authentic that people will just talk or delve into random tangents and just help to appeal more. I'm always up for more adventures with the Goofy gang, which includes one of them over there in particular, if you can see him. But, you know, it could really use a smile right now because more than ever, and it's not too long away from release as well. So the new season will be released on Adult Swim in about a month's time from the 5th and 6th of October. As for the last of the film trailers we have for this week is the focus of follow-on, where the case that what was seen as an urban legend had a known tale of someone very dangerous may have been long ago, and his presence will no longer cause a threat in any form from an unfortunate incident, that the likes of the trauma will still never leave a person. But what happens when, even with the demise of that trauma, the calls come back in a more sinister way, and the nightmares begin again? As The Grabber is back once more, with the release of the second trailer for the upcoming sequel to The Black Phone. And the film is set 4 years after the events of the original, and we'll see Gwen, now 15, being haunted by nightmares where she is receiving the calls on the Black Phone and some disturbing visions of 3 boys being stalked and killed at a winter camp. Accompanied by her older brother Finn, who survived the Grabber, they head to said camp to solve this mystery, only to once again confront the Grabber, a killer who seems to have grown ever more powerful, even in death. Now, it's a case that I enjoy the original, that I know was a case of being started as a short story and evolved into a full supernatural form, and I wondered for a while that what would work in the likes of a sequel, feeling like it was a copycat or maybe he did survive or something, but it seems from this going more in the realm of it being like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of thing, with the grabber being like a Freddy Krueger stand-in in some way, but I'm sure it may appeal in that aspect, but I'm sure we'll see how it all comes about when the film will be making a call into cinemas in just over a month's time on the 17th of October. And our final trailer for this week is in the focus the case that over the years that we've seen many different iconic killers in the slashers or horror fillers, from the unsettled form of Norman Bates in Psycho, the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or even the unsettling tone of Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. But what looks to the case that most of these people were inspired by one particular killer, whom Memphis' creations were quite unspeakable. Well, following the success of the stories of Dahmer and the Menendez twins, we're taking a focus to one of the most twisted one yet, as we have a trailer for the next story in the Monster series with the Ed Gein story. Now, the new story will focus on the twisted reality of convicted murderer and suspected serial killer of Ed Gein, played by Charlie Hunnam, back in 1950s rural Wisconsin, who was well known as the killer that turned his victims' organs and skin into twisted furniture. Now, the series I feel makes a lot of sense to focus on different killers and twisted ones over the years, and I feel this guy is truly one of the most fucked up one and stomach turning, as I have seen some of the works that he has made of his victims, and they are messy and disturbing at best. And I question if I can stomach this one, or if more in the psychological aspect of all this instead, but I guess we will see in due time. Hopefully we'll kind of see as well, following on this, we get some female serial killers, some murderers in later seasons, but we will see how this will all come about in due time, with this season releasing in just under a month's time as well, on October 3rd. And with all that regards, that's all the new trailers that we do have for this week.
What the hell kind of name is Soap?
So initially the first news stories was going to be one and done focused, but I split it off into two for this reason, and the other form of the connecting one way, and instead the case of story, will focus primarily on some release dates from announcements, delays, and changes or updates or some other project. But let's delve into this now and see what was in focus. So our first one, with the official confirmation, after a bit of speculation on when we will see this release, we got the confirmation that we'll be floating around Derry with the new prequel series based on Stephen King's It, with the series confirmed to be set for release from the 26th of October. And while it's just in time for the spooky season of Halloween, the moment it's unclear if we will be releasing all at once type ordeal or if it'll be a weekly series focused up to the end of the year, but I'm sure they will have it all planned out, but could also do a bit of a daily new episode of the week up to Halloween with the final episode on that night, but I guess we'll see close to the date and see from the release on the 26th of next month. The next two release date projects in mind are focused in the realm of superheroes, as we have two in focus for this week, and the first one was first mentioned a little while ago, and it seems to have been a bit of production all done through and sorted, and it looks like we know the next series from the wider MCU coming along after Wonder Man is in the focus of the miniseries focused on the character of the Vision with Vision Quest, with the series confirmed now for 2026. Now it seems this will have a fair bit of focus on some of the AI, including the title character as well as return of Edith, Friday, and even the likes of Ultron as well, and I think a female Ultron as well in that aspect, and it seems the project has already been filmed and is on the post-production phase right now, so in most cases it could be to bring the first one in next year before the next season of Daredevil, but it's unclear as of right now on that approach, but I'm sure they will give an idea of when this series is out close to next year, but once I do hear any release day updates, I'll provide them in a later episode of course. Now for an announcement that from this week was really popped off in excitement, and one that we were not expecting to hear for this soon, but hopping from Marvel to DC, we have the confirmation that the sequel to this year's Superman is not only well into development, but in fact we have a release date and a name, as it was confirmed on Tuesday or Wednesday this week. The sequel, now titled Man of Tomorrow, will be releasing on the 9th of July 2027, meaning the first three DCU films will be focused towards the heroes of Krypton, with Superman this year, Supergirl next year, and then Man of Tomorrow in 2027. Now I'm all excited for this next entry as I enjoyed the most recent take on the character, and it seems that Lex and Supes are teaming up to stop a greater threat in this regards, and reports that also Supergirl, Lobo, and even Peacemaker are making appearances in this film as well, and some of the other Justice Gang in particular, so my guess is possibly Brainiac? We don't know yet. But it's also the case that we'll see more new heroes get their time to shine, hopefully, and not over-reliant on the Man of Steel and the Kryptons, but I'm not one to complain this aspect fully. I'm sure we will get more info on what we can expect in this follow, but once we hear anything, I'll of course update you in a later episode in that particular instance. Now the only story of a release date that is left now in obscurity. It was confirmed on Wednesday morning that the fourth directed film from Oscar-winning director Jordan Peele is not now releasing on its initially planned October 23rd, 2026 release date, has now gotten no new release currently. And the reason for this change in date is the folks that Peele is having difficulty with coming together with a complete script which was already being delayed and affected by the writers and actors strikes 2 years ago, and from different projects in focus, but I can understand with the delay that while it does sting to wait longer, I would gladly do so for the likes of Peele's films, as I have enjoyed his directing work and will even say some of his produced projects, including like Monkey Man and probably this year's Him, are entertaining too, and I'm sure we'll be all worth to see what crazy concept he crafts next. And if there's any new updates on this project in the future, I will of course provide it in a later episode. But speaking of directors with follow-up projects, it's not the only change-up that occurred for another project, as was announced on Thursday evening or Friday morning that the director of last year's Alien Romulus, of Fede Alvarez, has confirmed that while he will write and produce the sequel to the Alien film, he is confirmed not to be back as a director, with the next focus to find the new one underway. Now it's a shame, as I will say I enjoyed that Alien film and I feel it would be interesting to see what will come of this project with a new director's vision of that script, but I'm sure we will see in due time what comes of it. If there was a case of making my own suggestions for the project, I would suggest either likes of, Guillermo del Toro to make his own take on this series, which I feel would be really interesting to see, or with the director of the recent Predator films of Dan Trachtenberg, as I feel he would have the strong mindset to make it work, but I guess we'll have to see what comes of his choices. And if anything does change or a name is announced, I'll of course provide that later on. But what do you make of all these release date changes? Is there anything you were most excited for, and who do you see taking over the reins to the Alien Romulus sequel, and when do you expect to see the next Jordan Peele film? Let me know what you think down below in the comments in this aspect. And our second and final story for this week is something in common with all of these three stories, and that is the focus they all are discussing about video game adaptations, as we have the official dates for 3 projects, including in development, official lists and release dates, and some announcements. And I'm figuring out what will the project entail at work. Let's delve into these projects in particular. So our first in focus for this week is one that we have had a bit of a talk on for a while now over the last few weeks, and that is the focus of the Street Fighter movie, as this week we have gotten a really cool way in showing off who is playing who in playing these characters, and the confirmation as to when we can expect the film now. But giving a quick fire rundown of all who's playing the cast is as follows. So Cody Rhodes is playing Guile, Kalana Lan is playing Chun-Li, Andrew Koji is playing Ryu, Andrew Schultz is playing Dan Hibiki, Roman Reigns is playing Akuma, Alexander Volansky is playing Joe, 50 Cent as Balrog, Oliver Richters as Zangief, Hiroki Goto as E Honda, Vajra Jamal as Dal Shim, Rania Vallandigham as Julie, Orville Peck as Vega, Noah Centino as Ken, Mel Jarson as Cammy, Jason Momoa as Blanca, Eric Andre as Don Salvage, and David Daltz-Matzian is playing the villain of M. Bison. So there is quite an array of names and choices for these characters, but it will be interesting to see what will come of this cast of characters, and that story in focus with a follow-up, and we can check it out as also a case that the film now has a new official release date, which initially was supposed to be the beginning of next year, but the film is now set for release on the 16th of October next year. So I guess we'll see by then who will be the ultimate fighter by the film's release. Our next story in focus with an update to a project that I believe a little while ago I had heard a bit of rumors that this series adaptation was initially cancelled or shelved, that some of those sources may have been from some of those named figures that are not the most trustworthy of sources, but it was confirmed this week that the planned TV series based on Tomb Raider for Amazon Prime is in fact still in development, and we have confirmation of a filming starting date, with the show being helmed by Fleabag writer and creator and star of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Chad Hodge, creator of the TV series of Good Behavior, and the opening episode will be directed by Shogun creative of Jonathan Van Tulliken, and also be starring Game of Thrones star Sophie Turner as Lara Croft, with the production now starting for January of next year. In all cases, I'm intrigued to see what approach they will go with this version of the character. Will it be a case of the classic games inspired by the movies, or will it go for the reboot franchise in that aspect? But we don't know yet, but I guess it'll be interesting to see what approach they go for each seasons, but I'm sure we will see how it all comes about in due time, and if there's any updates in regards to a new release date or any more new casting additions, I'll of course provide it in a later episode. As for our last of the stories in the world of gaming that we have for this week, this adaptation is the one I have to wonder how this will be distinguished between the others like in the genre, as was announced reports last week and confirmed early this week that Paramount is fast-tracking and currently developing a film based on the Call of Duty series. Now, the reason I say how they will distinct it is with the aspect that we've seen a lot of films in recent memory and over the decades based on the concept of soldiers in wars and stuff, that I wonder how will this be distinct compared to others like it in the genre. I know there's the past era games like the original trilogy, World War II, Vanguard, and some of the Black Ops titles like the first and Cold War, or even and 6 as well, or even the case to go with the more present stuff like Modern Warfare or Ghosts, and the likes of the future stuff of Advanced or Infinite Warfare, or even Black Ops 2, 2 and 3, and 7. But The question is how they will make this feel authentic and like it's one of the video games itself. In the most case, I can see the doing the approach of the film like the 2016 movie of Hardcore Henry, where the entire film was done in first person throughout, as it could help it appeal, but besides that, I really have no idea. Now, at the moment, we have no aspect of who's involved, actors playing the characters, and when we can expect this film itself, although I've heard rumblings that apparently Steven Spielberg tried to make one of these years ago, so maybe get him back? But I guess once I hear anything this aspects, I'll update in a later episode. But with all of that now, I want to think, what do you think of these game stories? Do you think the Street Fighter film has a solid cast, and who would you cast in particular? Who were you checking out the Tomb Raider series? And what approach would you like to see from this Call of Duty movie? And what era would you like it in? And who should direct and star? Let me think down below, we can all talk about that there. But with all that now, that's all the new news stories that we do have for this week.
Oh, did that startle you? So sorry.
And in all that regards now, that ends episode 120 of Weird Mind Newsroom, and I hope you join my ramblings for well over 20 minutes. Now, let's give a quick fire update of what you can expect coming to this channel in due time. So we're starting with reviews. I'm going to get back to recording the reviews and stuff like that of like, Last of Us and a few other long form ones. I feel like I've really kind of neglected it this year, kind of in compared to the last 2 years. So I'll try and do a kind of a bit of a selection this year, just of like sort of big stories as well as the snack size box office ones, which I will be quickly editing and uploading over the next couple of days. I meant to do it this week, but I've just been exhausted. They'll be coming due time, as well as a long, short, different variations and stuff like that, so they'll be coming along. Anyways, then we'll go on to the kinds of some gameplays. There'll be a DK Bonanza video probably coming out in the next couple of days as well, and it's going to finish recording and editing it in aspects, as was the case of I'm going to get back to Mario Wonder, to Cyberpunk, to Star Wars, and maybe start some few other ones. Like, we're getting into the kind of we're into the spooky season, so it might be a few games in the horror aspects, like maybe like Alone in the Dark, Quiet Place, Alan Wake, Dead Space, a few other ones. Like, they're probably going to come along eventually, so regards, and I'll probably try and do a few like the Game of the Year winners from the Game of the Year nominations from this year, so like Claire Obscure, Christian Cherry Tree and other stuff, but we'll see in that regards. I will probably play some Silk Song, play some Ventilate. I'm going to play all these ones, so look forward to those. Another case of the long form stuff, so basically the AI audience choice video is still coming along, the rewatchathon stuff is still going to happen, the Horror Most Board Volume 2 is going to happen. I might skip this year because there's not really a lot of big horror movies of like messy years. I noticed the Peter Pan's Never Nightmare or the Screamboat or some of the ones. I might have to see what is the worst one, which I think is possibly, I know what you did last summer, but we'll have a look. I might do it. And then in case as well, the Lego Time Lapse one, the Deluxe Lump is coming. I will do Optimus Prime and Fantastic Four, and there is another one that I have one or two coming along as well in that aspect. And one of them, is quite big. That's what she said. But with all that, I'm going to probably end it there for now in regards. So if you'd like to see my content more frequently and more from me, then simply like and subscribe. I still upload new stuff every single week. I know it's been like 1 or 2 every week, but I'm trying to push out more and more by the end of this year. And I'm hoping to reach for 500 subs. If any way you can help in that regards, let me know down below in the comment. Help along and help me reach 500 and even get to maybe close to 1,000, but even to 500 would be great for this year in that regards. Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed this week down below, including new releases, the trailers, the news stories and all that stuff. Let me know your thoughts on everything in discussion. We can have a talk about it down below in the comments. And yeah, I posted actually one of these videos on my Insta or even on my TikTok. I might post 1 or 2 of these episodes now and again on those and stuff. Maybe post the Has Been Hotel review or some of my TikTok closer to the new season's release next month, but we'll see in that regards. Anyways, I think I've rambled on for long enough and I'm gonna probably end it up there. So you all stay being wonderful people, have a great day every day, doing many great things, keeping you because no one else do. And important as well, because September is Mental Health Month, make sure to, and Suicide Prevention Month, make sure to take care and check in on your friends and stuff, because they probably need it more than anything. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there for now. And as always, you will see wonderful people, and I'll see you all in the next episode. So take care, and I'll see you all later.